One, two, three, one, two, three. We are live. Yes, we are. What is up, everybody? Third day in a row. I've never done in my life 3 days of live streaming in a row. And let me tell you, I'm not sure if I'm ever going to do that again. That is so intense. I don't know if it's intense for you, but I'm excited for today. We've got a lot to cover. First of all, welcome, everybody. Thank you for showing up here live. Let me call out where you're tuning in from today. We've got North Carolina, Toronto, Canada, Ireland, Croatia, Istanbul, India, Chile. Nice, nice, nice. Ireland, hi from Iran. Nice, nice, nice. That's awesome to see all of you with us here today. So let me wrap up the concept if you're new here for this 3-day live stream. Basically, what we had is a 3-day challenge to take a client brief and turn it into a live website. So on day one, we turned the brief from a brief into a brand kit. On day two, we did the web design. And today, we're going to start building this in Webflow, and hopefully you're working alongside with us and you're going to submit your own designs. Now, if you're new to Webflow and Webflow is too much for you, it's okay if you just submit your Figma design. But if you want to take things to the next level, if you want to push yourself and practice your Webflow builds, then submit those to us. We're going to later, if you're registered, you're going to get an email with a type form. And also, I think Zara is going to post the link to the type form here in the chat so that you can submit your works. The due date for submitting the work is by the end of day on Sunday, because on Monday we're going to have another live stream where we're actually going to review your work, the best works that were submitted to us. The winners are going to get, so there's going to be one winner, the best design that's going to get AirPods Pro. So hopefully that's you. So please submit. As I said, Webflow not required, but please submit what you have. Okay, with that said, let me start off and share my screen because we've got a lot to cover today. So, okay, so here's what we've got. Let me share the agenda for today's session. We're going to start off by starting up a new Webflow project and setting up a style guide for the project. This is how I start all my Webflow project, and I want to show you the process. Actually, you know what? Before I get started with today's agenda, I want to show you. Now, this is the design that we've finished off yesterday. Now, I don't think I can build this full thing in Webflow in just 1 hour. I'm fast on Webflow, but not that fast. So, and I also want to say, I know that some people here on the stream are new to Webflow, and other people already know Webflow. And I want to make it interesting, both if you're new to help you grab the fundamentals, but also if you've been working with Webflow, I want to show you something interesting new. So here's what my goals for today's stream are. I want to show you how I would set up the project and build this first hero section and go ahead and make it responsive. And then here in the second section, we have this kind of like a carousel, which is probably going to be a CMS carousel where those are kind of like dynamic content that the client can add new packages. And it's kind of like a slider, like an infinite slider. Now, this is not something that's possible natively with Webflow. And so I want to show you how I would solve this, how I would look for like a custom carousel and insert that into my project. So that's my goal for trying to do these two things in 1 hour. So here's basically the timeline. Let me bring that back. 10 minutes setting up the style guide. I'm going to keep times today. 15 minutes to build the hero section, 10 minutes to make it responsive, maybe even 7 minutes. Implementing the custom slider, 15 minutes, and that's going to leave us about 10 minutes for Q&A. So that's my plan for today. And now I'm going to bring that here. And now here's my timer for today, my ugly online stopwatch. And I'm going to start it now. And then boom, off to the races, as they say. We've got a lot to cover in the next 10 minutes. So here's how I would want to get started. By the way, I didn't say this, but if you want to dive deeper into Webflow and all of our courses, now would be a good time. We have kind of like a flash sale, and there's a secret coupon code below this video. And I think this sale offers, this offer ends tomorrow or something. So make sure you check that out. Back to Webflow. Before we dive into Webflow and start off a new project, the first step would be to actually go ahead and export the images so that we can bring them right into Webflow. Now, basically, if you're new to Figma, you double click them, you set them out here for export. You would probably want to go ahead and do it 2x so that it's high resolution for Retina display. And then you would go ahead and export the images that you would need, and also the logo and also the kind of the map vector that we have in the background. So I already went ahead and let me see here on my desktop, I have Webflow build and I've exported these images here already. That would be your first step when you're setting up the project. Now, the second step is to get started with a style guide. Now, we already have a template for you, and this is actually a clonable. If you want to get started with the style guide, our style guide, below this video, I've put this in the description, and you can clone the exact kind of like starter file that I'm working with. And let me show you what's in this starter kit. So first of all, here in the pages, we can see that this is the home page, and basically delete this style guide, delete this component, right? Okay, delete this. Now we have a page here that's hidden. You see this icon as a draft. That's a style guide. So only us, we're only going to see this. This is not a page that's published on the website. And here we have all of our style guides and all of our styles like H1, H2, H3, and the colors that we'll use and the buttons. So we'll take a few minutes to set this up right now so that when we're building the site, all the elements that we're dropping are already styled, and things are going to be so much faster down the line. So this should probably be your first step. So let's go ahead and actually do this. So the first thing here is to set the global font for this website. Now, if you remember, yesterday we picked Poppins. Actually, on day one, we picked Poppins as our brand font, and it's the Google font. So let's go ahead and load it. The way I'm going to do this is I'm going to go here into the body, and I want to change body for all pages. So I'm not adding a new class. I'm basically just changing the font for all of the page, because everything inside the page is going to inherit everything that's inside of the topmost class, which is the body, as you can see here in the navigator. So you can see here, the default is System UI, and if I change this, it's going to change all the fonts on this page. Now, we don't have Poppins loaded right now, so I'm going to click here, Add Fonts, and I'm going to go here into the fonts. It took me to the site setting, to the fonts tab, and from here, I can load up Google Fonts, which is, let's find Poppins here, Poppins. And I'm not sure what exactly here it says semi-bold and medium. I'm not sure what this is in numbers, but let me do regular and 700. Sometimes, because this doesn't correlate to the names that you have, you need to test this out. I'm going to do add fonts, and they have been edited. So basically, let's actually go here and reload this so that we can see if it's actually loaded to the website. So now let's go back, pick the body, just like we did previously, body all pages, and now Poppins. Now it's here. So this is it. It's going to be normal 16 font. That's okay for the body font. And now let's go ahead and set the headings. So let me close this. So H1 is the biggest heading that we have here. If I'm clicking it, I can see it's 75 pixels and the line height is 100%. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. I don't care about the colors right now because colors might be different depending on the section and so forth. So I'm just taking care of sizing right now. Again, here, after choosing the H1, I'm not adding a new class. I want this to affect all H1s, all headings that I will add to the website down the line. So I'm picking this one, and then was it 75, I guess? In line height, I can do 100%, which is exactly what we had in the Figma file. So this is it. This is done. Next one, H2. So H2 is what we have here. So here it's 50, 120. So H2, all H2s, 50, 120 height. Bam, we've got that. Now H3, we don't really have H3 here, but we do have this, subheading, but I don't know if it's correct from SEO perspective to call this H3. I don't know if it's right from SEO perspective, but I'm going to use this as H3. So I'm going to do semi-bold 18 for this one as well. So let's go ahead and do that. 18. It's also 120. I haven't looked at the line height, but 120 looks okay. So what else do we have? We have normal paragraphs, and just looking at the paragraph, I don't even need to go here. It looks as if you can already visually see that the lines are too tight, so it's actually hard to read this. So I'm going to click and adjust all paragraphs, and I'm just going to add a little bit, maybe 120% as well. No, this is not enough. I'm going to just by hand increase the line height, and also the gap that we have. You see here the gap between the bottom padding that we have here on paragraph is how much space there is between paragraphs. I want a little bit more. Yeah, now that's way more readable. So that's good. Now we have large paragraph, and this is good because this is large paragraph, 16. This is 18 versus, I guess, the normal text that we have here, which is 16. Yeah, so I guess we can call this large paragraph, and it's just 18 instead of 16, right? This is 16. So we have a class here, large P, and let's set that to 18. And let's do 125% here, maybe 130. Okay, looks good. Small paragraphs, I don't have one right now. Light text color. So here we have light text. But what I do see that I will need is orange text. So sometimes I can highlight one word in orange. So instead of light text, let's actually go ahead and change that, rename the class to orange text, But also let's go ahead and define the colors, right? So we have all of these colors. Let's start by defining them. Now, here you can see that when I'm choosing dark color, where is the dark color? Okay, so I'm picking that up, and you can see that we have this color from the palettes here, and they all have this rectangular. And that means that these colors are, by the way, I'm just want to see that. Yeah. Okay, what I wanted to show you is these colors, the fact that they have this little triangular here means that they are global color. Meaning, what that means is if later on we need to adjust this text a little bit, we can control every instance of that color from one place. So let's say the client wants to change the shade of the orange, or they want to change the accent color from orange to whatever green. We can just go here and do edit swatch, and it will edit all the instances. So this is really a great method to kind of work with colors, with global color. So let's start by taking this color as the dark color. I have my palette right here. Just go ahead and paste that here, save. And then we have primary brand color. This should probably be the orange one. So let's take the orange one as primary color. Let's edit that. Save that. Secondary we don't really have, but I can put here the orange and just make it maybe a little bit darker. Maybe that's if I hover over the button or something like that. Mid gray is going to be this one. And I can see that I'm out of time for the style guide. So we're going to have to run through this very quickly. Okay, so this is mid gray. This is going to be the light gray. Very fast. Oh, so stressful. Okay. This one, and light color should be white, so that is good. And what I wanted to do here with the orange text is just select here the color now that I have this orange text. Now I have a class that's called orange text, which I can apply to any text that I want to be orange, and I'm going to use that to highlight all of these orange text that we have here. Okay, the last thing that I didn't tackle, and I have like 20 seconds to tackle, is making the buttons here look like the buttons that we have here, which basically just add tons of round corners to it. So I'm going to go down here into the borders, round corners. That means I need to get into the hero section. So just do this, not 100%, but 100 pixels. And then, so we've got round corners, and I'm going to add a bunch more padding. I think now the buttons look like they look like in our design. And we already have the inverse one that we have for here already created automatically for us. So we basically, we already have this button and this button set up. You can see this is the normal button and this is ghost button, inverse button, already automatically created for us. Okay, style guide is ready. We can go ahead and start designing the hero section. Okay, so let's see what we have here. First of all, we have this. This is actually quite complex in terms of what's going on here. We have this background which has two kind of layers. There's the color, then there is this map on top of it, and then there is this orange rectangular. And then the other layout is quite simple. It's like two columns, text column and image column. And then the navigation is also quite non-standard, right? We've got logo, we've got this navigation, and we've got calls to action here. So not very simple. Let's see how we can tackle that. I'm going to start off by adding a section, because every section, we're kind of grouping it up inside of a div of a section so that it's going to be easy to manage that. And first thing that I'm going to do that's already included in this style guide, and you can see it here, is we already have some layout elements here. And the first thing that we have is section padding, because we never want the content to touch the edges of the screen, right? So we are always going to add this class, section padding. We also have container, which we're going to use very soon. So the first thing that I'm going to apply to this section is section padding. And now you can see that by default, we have here like 20 pixels on both sides. Now, this is going to be for all sections. Now I want to do things that are specific to the hero section. So I'm going to add another combo class that's called hero section. Now, the first thing, so that I can even see what we're doing, is I'm going to set the height of this section to take up the whole screen. So to do that, I'm going to set the height to 100 vertical height, VH. And that means that no matter what the size of the user's screen is going to be, it's going to take up the whole thing. Now, you still can't see anything. So let's give this a background. So background, let's pick this mid color. So now now you can actually see the section. It's taken up the whole screen and it's got this mid gray background. Fantastic. Let's start off with doing the navigation. So I'm going to start off by bringing in Webflow's native navigation component and throwing it in here. And I'm going to do that because that's great when we're going to have the website responsive. It automatically creates this hamburger menu, so it saves me a bunch of time. So that's great. However, as you can see, it's ugly and it doesn't look like we want this. So let's see how it looks like. So now inside the section, we have a nav bar. Inside the nav bar, we have a container, which you see is kind of centering everything in the middle. And then we have this brand, which we need to put the logo inside, and then the menu, and this is for the mobile menu. So we don't need this container. We actually want this to be side to side, edge to edge. So let's just take everything outside from the container. Okay, and just delete this container. So now we have two elements, and one of them is on the left side and the other one on the right side. But what we actually want is, if you look at this, we can look at this navigation in kind of like three elements: logo, navigation, and call to action buttons. But in terms of groups of alignment, we have left side group and right side group, okay? And this is important because that's how we're going to tell Webflow to align them. One group to the left and one group to the right. So first of all, to be able to kind of tell Webflow to do that, let's create these groups, and let's just wrap these elements in kind of like a div so that we can do that. So I'm bringing in like a normal div, and this is, let's call this left group. Let's call this nav left group, and put the brand inside of it, and put the nav menu inside of it, and also the menu button, because that's going to be part of that. And let's bring in another div block, which we're going to call nav right side. And here we're going to put the buttons. Now inside, now we want to put the left on the left and the right on the right. So the way that we're going to do this is we're going to go to the nav bar. Let's actually give this a class, call this nav bar, and actually remove the ugly background color, which we don't want. We'll figure out that it's white in a second. And in order to align the left to the left and the right to the right, we have to set the nav bar to become a Flexbox. That will give us these alignment options. So you see, I'm turning it here into a Flexbox. And now I can justify the boxes or the divs that are inside. I can justify one to the left and one to the right. And I can do this way. But I also want, so now it's been done, but because there's no content in them yet, they're kind of like aligning to the center. But what I really want to do is I want the left nav group maybe to take up the whole space. And the element inside of it, I guess the nav menu is still trying to float here to the right. I can cancel that, and now everything here. Now we have the left group on the left and the right group on the right. So let's start off by actually adding these things. Let's add the logo. By the way, I didn't load up my assets. So let's go here and upload my assets, all of my assets. And let's bring in the logo. Bring in the logo here. Now, wait, the logo is not inside the brand link. Now, if you actually look at what we have here, then this link, first of all, it touches the edge of the screen, and it has this kind of background, which is darker than the dark blue. And we can assume that this whole thing is linkable, right? This whole probably links to the homepage or something like this, and the image is just inside of it. So let's go ahead and take this brand. Let's call this brand link. Let's start styling it. First of all, we're going to add some padding so that there is, gap between the box and the image inside. Here, maybe we'll call this logo to make this smaller. So maybe 150 pixels. I don't know if this is too big, but maybe something like this. And then the logo, let's give this very dark background right here. Let's paste this dark color. Okay. Now what we see is that we do have a gap in the left side. And you remember that we gave the section a section padding. We actually wanted this to happen because we don't want text to touch the edges. But in this case, we want this box to be pulled out 20 pixels to compensate for, our pushing in all of the content. So by choosing the brand link, I can actually go here into the left margin and put -20. And now we are compensating for the section padding of 20, and it looks good. I do think that it might be too big what we have here, or the logo is actually too small. The logo needs to be smaller, so maybe 100 or something like that. Okay, now I also want all of these objects to align to the center, so maybe let's select all of this left group and turn that into a Flexbox as well, because now I'll be able to align everything that's inside of this to the center, and now you can see that these elements have been centered. Now let's call this Nav Link and start styling them. Basically, all I want to style is just change their color to white. And what do we have? About Us testimonials blog. So let me just duplicate this. About Us testimonials and blog. All right, so we got that. Now we need to bring in our buttons to here. So we've got buttons. Let's drag in a button to the right side of the nav. Let's actually duplicate both of them. Now the first one is button, button, button. And I happen to remember, the styles or the classes, but you can, of course, just copy them from the style guide because we already have these elements. And this is probably button and then maybe ghost. And then we also want it to be white, so inverse ghost. Okay, so now we've got them. I do want them to be centered inside of this element, right? So that they align to this and also spaced a little bit. So once again, I'm going to select their wrapper, the box, the div that's holding them. It's called nav right side. And I'm going to turn that into a Flexbox. You can see Flexbox is so useful to do so many things. What I want to do is align them to the center so that they're not aligned to the top like before they were like this, and now they're aligned to the center. Also, I can add some gap here. So if I'm adding like a little bit of gap, yeah, that's exactly what I want. All right, so now we have, it's actually this one should be here, how it works, and this one should be get started. All right, oh my God, we've got 4 minutes to finish up this, 4 minutes to finish up the hero section. Oh my God. All right, next, bring in the content. So you can see that this content is not reaching to the ends, to the end of the screen. It is contained, and this is super common in web design. We want to put the content inside a container. So we already have that set up as part of the style guide. So I'm throwing that in here and calling it container. We already have one container. This is actually a little bit too small. So the style guide, it's set to 1100 pixel. Let me turn that to maybe 1250, a little bit wider, you can see. And now let's bring in the content here. Also, we can call this maybe hero contain, just because I want to, give it a little bit more padding from the top of the screen, something like this. And now we have 2 columns. So that's going to be done very, very simple with a grid. So let me pull a grid. We don't need this row. We just need 2 different columns, maybe a little bit more space between them. So now we've got that. So now we can put in a div to hold the content and a div to hold the image. So let's do that. Let's put a div block in here. Let's actually copy and paste that. So we have 1 div in the left column and 1 div in the right column. This one, let's call it content side. And let's call this image side. I'm being very not consistent with how I name my classes here, but never mind. Okay, in the content side, we have an H1. Let us plan your next trip. So let's drag an H1. Let us plan your next trip. Now, in general, because this section is dark, I can go ahead and change all the texts in this section. Here I'm selecting the section and changing all of the typography color to white. And now I don't have to specify that this text is white. All the text is going to be white, which is great. But I do want to make the words next trip orange. And we already have a class for that. So I'm selecting these, and I can just give a span. It's called wrap with a span. That's going to give a separate class just to these words. And you remember it's called orange text. Bam. All right. So that is done. Now let's go ahead and put this. This is kind of, we call this large P. So let's grab a paragraph, let's paste the content, and let's apply large P to this. Also probably for this H1. I don't know if for all H1, anyway, we're going to have only 1 on this page. We're going to give it a little bit more bottom padding so there's a little bit more spacing. And then we have this fill-in questionnaire. We can take this button, can paste it here, fill in questionnaire. For sure I'm having spelling mistakes, but whatever. All right, content side is done. Image side, let's bring in the image. Let's bring it up here. Bam, it's pretty much okay. One thing that I do want is I want the content to be centered to the image. Right now it aligns to the top, and this is something that we can do very fast because this is a grid. So if I'm choosing here the content side of things, I'm getting these grid options, and you can see I can align to center, and now it's just centered to the height of the column. This is great. Let's choose this image and give it, or actually this image side, maybe give it round corners so that it looks like the design, maybe 15. And I want to make sure that the image doesn't go out. So I'm going to choose overflow hidden. And now, because the image itself was going outside of the div. All right. Oh my God, it's done. And I didn't have time to put the background and this, the map and the orange div. Never mind. I want to move forward because I want to talk about responsiveness and I want to make sure we get to everything. So we didn't get to perfect the background, but let's talk about making this responsive. So yesterday, somebody asked if I'm doing the mobile responsive versions here in Figma, and I said you can do this. By the way, I'm going to take a few seconds to drink. So I'm usually too lazy to do them in Figma, although you can do them in Figma. I just do them straight up in Webflow. So what I do is I start moving down one by one. I'm moving into the tablet. I'm like, does this work? Well, obviously it doesn't work, right? So what's the problem? First of all, this text is too big, right? So I'm going to go down here and start making the text a little bit smaller. Now I can ask myself, do I still want this to be 2 columns, or maybe I need to switch them around? But I do think that here on tablet level, it's okay. It's actually, it still works. I'm just going to make the heading a little bit smaller, and this large P, maybe move it to 16. It's actually not bad. Maybe this one we can move to 15. I think it's actually not bad. One thing that I do need to probably remove is the section to turn it into a vertical height to take up the whole screen. So maybe on mobile, it's too much, and I don't know, maybe we don't need this. So maybe I can change this to auto, and now the section is just going to finish up, where the content ends. Maybe actually I need to add a little bit more padding to the bottom of the section. But on mobile, on tablet, maybe you can start showing the next section already. So tablet, okay, looks good. Let's move to this, to mobile landscape. Now this, yes, we're going to make this text a little bit smaller still, right? But I don't think that this layout works here. So now it's a good time to start saying, okay, 2 columns doesn't work. Let's edit this, right? Let's turn it into a 1 column and just go ahead and delete the column. Now I can ask myself, though, what should we see first, the image or the text? Now, and this, there is no right or wrong answer, right? This is your kind of like your choice as a designer, what to show. Maybe let's try to switch it around. Let's pick the image side here, and I can go ahead into the grid setting and set it to first. So it does look good, but maybe it's taking up too much space, or maybe we just don't need so much space here at the top. We don't need that much space at the top of the content. We can make that smaller. We can also, by the way, the navigation becomes too cramped here. And I think, okay, let's think, I can make things smaller, but I can also say, look, this is a secondary call to action. We don't need to see it here on mobile. Or I can start putting it inside of this navigation. So for this one, I want to completely hide it for now. So I'm going to add a class, because right now it's a generic button, but I'm just going to call it ghost, or like hero secondary, so that I can go ahead and decide I don't want to see it, display none, just like hide it. On mobile, hide it. Now I also remember that, look at the layout here. It's actually, the screen is probably going to be something like this. So I'm already not sure that I've made the right choice with putting this first, the image first. So let's switch things around, actually. Reset it. And okay, so this is more logical if we're on mobile, but maybe I also want to make it smaller, right? So maybe I'm going to give this a class, call this hero image, and maybe see what happens if I make this 50%, maybe 60%. Okay, so it's more logical right now, but maybe we have a cooler layout if it aligns to the right. Let's see if we go into the image side and we just change the text alignment to the right. Also, the hero image, I guess, needs to have its own round corners, because we lost the round cornerness here. Is this a better layout? Actually, I don't know. I don't know if I like it. So you see, some people, they figure this out, or they think about this problem when they're here in the design process, and you can do this, and that's it's a valid approach. I just figure it out kind of like on the go. What would happen if I would center this? I don't know. But actually, you know what? The truth is that if I would go ahead and actually finish this whole layout and I had this rectangular, I think I would put this rectangular now aligns to the left side, and that would actually kind of balance out the composition, and that would actually make it look better, I think. So I think if I would complete the design, it would look good. Next step here. Okay, so first of all, I can see that now the logo is way, way, way too small. Can make it much bigger. Also make this probably much smaller. So let's call this Hero Primary, because this, I just want to make this button much smaller. So maybe turn it into 14 and reduce a lot of the, yeah, make it much smaller. And actually on mobile, this should probably be 100%. This looks, on mobile, I think this makes way more sense. Let's test again what would happen if this would actually be the first, sorry, not this thing, not the navigation, but the image first. Yeah, on mobile, this actually looks better. So, because now the screen side is probably going to be something like this. And now this actually makes more sense when it's not landscape. All right, so this is how I would approach making the website responsive. And once I've made that, all other sections are going to be much easier to build because I've already set up, you know, the text styles, the buttons, the navigation. So making the website responsive down the line is going to be much, much faster. Okay, that is done. We now want to tackle how I would go ahead and create this this slider, which is not native to Webflow. So Webflow has a slider. Let me revert this back. Webflow has a slider. I don't know, you're probably familiar with it. This kind of a slider, but that's not what we want, right? And it's also not dynamic with the CMS. So how I would approach this is this. First of all, I would want to see maybe step number one, did somebody build something like this on Webflow that I can clone? This is step number one. Step number two, if nobody did it, maybe somebody did it and there's like custom code, somebody on websites like CodePen or something like this. So let's start with step number one. I would go to made in Webflow, popular websites. I would go slider, right slider, and start checking out what people did. Like, what did people create? Now, here we have CMS Slider with progress bar. That's close. And sometimes, to be honest, if I'm really lazy, I might adjust my design just because it's easy, because somebody will created something. And if it's not that far from my original design and it's really easy to develop, if somebody already created it, then great. What do we have? What do we have? Let me load up a bunch more. Okay, so check this out. Check this out. CMS Slider plus custom nav plus filter. All right, so this looks exactly like we need. This is even more, sophisticated than what we did, because you can filter by category. Which, by the way, it's actually, you know what? Maybe that's something that we do want. Select by Asia, America, or whatever to filter your destinations. But overall, seems like we can work with this. So let's go ahead and clone this. Now I've already went ahead and did that. And I've also practiced this before, so I really hope this would work. First thing I look at is, let's try to figure out how this works and how we can implement this on our website. So first of all, obviously we'll need, CMS, and we'll create CMS in a second. But how does that work? I'm going to open up the page settings to see if there's any custom code. There is custom code. And by the way, a lot of times these grayed out things here, they are the code documentation. So even though I'm not like I don't code, I can read this documentation, and a lot of times it would tell me what to do. So this is a CSS that's needed. I can customize the CSS. All right, let's see. Okay, so we need to probably copy this. Then we have this. It loads up like slider JavaScript, and then this is how it's being configured, and this is how the filter works. And okay, so we're gonna need to copy this code. Okay. And then how does that work? So we have this navigation, and you can see that usually for it to work, we're going to go here into the settings. So for this one, it's either that we're going to have to use exactly the class structure that they have used. So I'm actually going to have to copy this element as it is. Or sometimes, you see here they have an ID for this, which is called Cms Slider left. So we have to make sure that when we're copying this, we get all of these things exactly right. And for example, here, they already have styles for this, right? So CMS Slider item, we're going to have to keep everything exactly this way if we want this to work. So let's go ahead and give this a try. So first of all, let me go here and let's create a section so that we can do something in it. Section, and this section padding, remember that's how we get started. Next, this section is actually kind of like this whitish, so let's call this white section, and make sure that the background color is kind of like this light gray. Let's also give it kind of like a padding so we can see what's inside. Okay, let's create our CMS. So I'm going to here into CMS, create a collection. In this case, let's call it cities, cities, or destinations, cities, whatever. All we need here is just an image and the name of the city. Of course, if this was a real website, there's probably a lot more info that needs to go there. But for this one, we only need a name, and let's add an image field. That's it, all right? Image. Save. So that's what we have. Create a collection. Now, to save up a bunch of time, wait, you're about to close a collection with unsaved. Why is it not saved? Save. Create collection. Great. Let's just add 5 items because I'm lazy and I don't want to spend time uploading images and typing cities' names. So, fantastic. We've got 5 fake cities with fake names. Actually, you know what? Damn, I wanted to create like 10 or something so we can see that the slider works. But oh well, we've got 5. Okay, so we've got that. Let's bring in the code. So let me open up the page settings and let's copy and paste the code. So this we don't need. Head code, copy, paste that in here. Body, let's go copy this, paste this here. Save. Bam. All right, that works. Fantastic. Next, what do we need? Actually, what they call here header wrapper with these buttons, actually not very far from what we have. So we need to bring that in, but we also want to make sure that it's within a container, right? So it's also aligned to what we have here at the top. So let's bring in a container. Let's bring in a div block. Let's call it container. And now we can start copying and pasting. So header wrapper, I'm just going to copy that here and paste it in the container. Okay. Paste for pasting, cross-site, we had to remove CMS binding. Okay, got it. Instead of this, I don't know what this is. I don't need it, but I can actually put my H2 here. All right, I can put my H2 here and I can bring in our featured locations. Okay. Category, we decided we don't need it, so I'm just going to delete this drop down. And buttons, I can go ahead and style them, but let's keep it to the end. I want to see if we have time, otherwise we would go ahead and style them. Let's start off with bringing in the actual thing, which is the content list wrapper. So let's copy that and paste it here in the container below the wrapper. Now, you saw here it says for pasting cross-site, we had to remove CMS binding. So right now there's nothing actually inside of it. However, it did keep all of the all of the classes. So that's great because that's exactly what we need. So we have the slick slider. Inside we have card slider item. So all we have right now is to actually build kind of like this design. So what do we need? We need one div that holds the image, or actually just an image. And then we have another kind of like maybe div that holds the information, the name of the city alongside this icon. So let's go ahead and create that. So let's bring in an image and put it inside of the card slider. Oh, I need to connect the connection. I need to connect to the collection. So let's choose cities. Fantastic. Okay. Now that we have all the cities, now I can bring in an image from our collection. So it's in here, and get image from our image field. So now it's pulling from our CMS. Now, specifically, you can see the images are just because we uploaded random images. But let's say I want to make sure that it's in this correct size. So let's say it's width 360 on 470. So let's do that. Let's call this slider image. Let's do 360, not 200, 360 on 470, was it? Something like this. You can see that the images are stretching. So I'm going to go here into the fit and do cover. So it's not trying to stretch the images from within. So we've got the images, and what do we need? We need now kind of like a div that we're going to call like city information, and that's going to have number one, the icon. Let's see that we have the icon. So let's bring in the icon. No, this is not dynamic. This is just a static icon that we have here. By the way, why am I not seeing maybe this? Oh, I can see that it had a this slider item, the actual class that we copied is setting this up as a horizontal Flexbox. Let's turn it into a vertical one. Okay, so now we can see this one here, city information. We can see the icon here. Let's bring in text. So text here, and we're going to get the text dynamically from the name, not published on, sorry, name. So this is going to be the name of the city, and next to the icon, to make sure that it's actually next to it, let's turn the city information into a Flexbox, make sure that they're stacked horizontally with a little bit of a gap between them and centered. But bam, so now we have the name of the city, the icon, and let's see if this works. Let's actually go ahead and publish this and see if this works. Dun, 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 dun. Will it work? I don't know. I'm going in here. It works. It works. Note something weird, though. It's actually not weird. Note that we're getting this very ugly horizontal scroll bar. So we have to fix this. But other than that, it actually works. So the way I'm going to fix this is I'm going to click on this section, this white section, and I'm going to make sure that that the width of it is 100%. And then everything that's overflowing outside of it is not going to be visible. So this is actually just going to crop things to 100% of the width of the website. Now I can go ahead and publish it again. And let's test this out. And now it works. Fantastic. So we have this custom slider working in about 10 minutes. And of course, we can go ahead and finish up the design and customize the buttons, how they look, but at this point, it's already pretty easy and set up. All right, so with that, we are kind of right on time in terms of our agenda. So let me pull in here, and I haven't taken a break to look at the comments so far. Are you guys having good time here? I don't know. I was so busy talking that I didn't get to look at the comments. Let me know if you're having a good time, and let's pull into some Q&A. I'm going to, if you've been dropping questions, I'm going to take a look at them right now. If you haven't, drop the questions in the chat right now. I'm just going to start reviewing some questions. And I'm going to remind you that the secret code that is below this video right now, if you want the full Webflow Masterclass, is expiring probably tomorrow. So you should definitely check it out. And let's do some comments. Good. Thank you. Thank you so much for the kind comments. Really appreciate it. Thank you. All right. So Sam is asking, loving the workshop so far. Can I submit a React.js website and Figma design and still be considered? Yes, because we're not going to, judge you whether you have mastered Webflow in a day or not. We know it's very difficult. And also, if you don't want to develop on Webflow, if you want to develop on React.js, fantastic. This is what we're going to judge is design. So the web design. So yeah, you'll still be considered. Viv, I have a similar question. I'm enrolled in the Webflow Masterclass course, still at the very beginning, and don't know Figma. Can I submit a design made in a different platform? Yes, no problem. This is not a Figma course here. Again, we're just going to see how you interpreted the design and your creativity and design skills. So that's what we want to check it out for. AK, does everything we see and learn here work for the free Webflow as well? Like Elementor, for example, it has different options for free and paid use. Is Webflow working the same? I think so. The only thing I'm not sure about is the custom code, but I'm pretty sure everything works. Not sure. We can open it up and view the features on the, but you can get very far on the free version of Webflow as well. And even you can build websites for clients on the free version, then transfer it to them and they will pay for the hosting and you're still on the free version. So it's, yeah. Another question is about the Webflow Masterclass. Does this also work with the free Webflow? Webflow looks quite interesting. Yes, so as I just said, you can completely get started for free with Webflow. Nothing we teach doesn't work unless you're paying, so you can definitely get started. CMS required a paid account as well, right? Okay, so yeah, I forgot that we just added CMS and perhaps, I don't remember. You know what? Let's open up Webflow Pricing and take a look at this together. Pricing. Let me share my screen for a second. Let me check out the Webflow Pricing. Okay, so we're not talking about site plans because site plans is what happens when you want to host. We're not talking about this. We're only talking about what they call now workspace plan, which is what you as a designer pay. So if you're working on the starter kit, let's see, start for free, view plans, all features. So on the starter, this is the starter, it's free. It's just you're building. You can't export the code, but you don't need this right now. You can transfer it to your client, which is great. What did we want to see? CMS? It doesn't even show CMS. So wait. Yeah, so I guess you can build with the CMS. You're just, if you want to publish it and if you want to yeah, CMS is no longer a feature that's required for. I guess if your clients would want to host it, then they would have to not take the basic, they would have to take the CMS, but it's got nothing to do with you. You can build it's just going to be more expensive to host. So that's where I think things are. I hope I'm not misleading. That's as far as I understand. All right, Jewish B, what are the limits of using Webflow free trial if wants to design an epic portfolio? So again, the limits are you can build it for free and you can even host it on jewishb.webflow.io. But if you want to put it on jewishb.com, then you're going to have to start paying for hosting. So that's the limit. You can build for free, but you can connect to your own domain for free. Gerald, how about submitting Figma file prototype with interaction? Love it. Stefan, when you name a class, do you need to place dash between the words? You don't have to. These are kind of like naming conventions, and there are clicks. There are people who say, do it this way or do it that way, or it's more readable this way. You don't have to. There are approaches to this. As you can see, sometimes I'm doing this. Sometimes I'm doing this with like capital letters to mark the words with capital letters, but you can choose your own adventure, I guess. Batman could you please tell whether submitting Figma file is sufficient? Yes, I've said this. Sorry if I haven't said this enough times, I think. But yeah, you can submit just Figma. You can submit just a JPEG. If you don't, I don't care how you designed it. Just get us something that we can look at and review. Webflow is not necessary. It's nice. It's a bonus. It's not mandatory. Do you choose winner based on design? Right. Not based on Webflow. Yes, correct. I've also started thinking about the criteria for choosing. Somebody asked about this, I think, yesterday. And I said, I haven't thought about this yet. But I had some like 3 minutes in the shower to think about this. And I think I came up with, damn, I should have written it down. I think it's going to be something like functionality in terms of, UX, and then creativity in terms of how original it is, and then maybe just like core design skills in terms of color, typography, that kind of stuff. I think these are going to be like a matrix that I'm going to try to score based on. Not sure, not final. These are just like my 5-minute thoughts. Paula, do we write our own copy for the challenge? Yes, don't stress too much about it. I mean, just do something fast. Don't worry about it, but yes. EP, hey Ron, what should be our main focus when interacting with our clients in different parts of the process, like you've covered from day 1 to 3? Also, how do you usually go about securing a client? What should be our main focus when interacting with our clients? When you are in the first part, we didn't cover strategy on the first day of branding because I gave you the brief, but when you start interacting with the clients, you want to figure out their needs. And so in the first phase of the project, you really are focused on understanding them. Then when you're presenting designs, you are basically focused on selling them on your ideas in a way that you're presenting your thought process and linking it back to their goals and their ideal customer so that they understand we're not judging this based on is this beautiful or not, but based on is this going to help us achieve our goals? Is this close enough to the brief? Is it answering the brief, and so forth? On days like today, where it's basically technical, it's basically just showing them that this works and getting them to review it. And you're going to try to find, bugs or mistakes and QA kind of like together. So I think these are most things. How do you usually go about securing clients is like a whole conversation about finding clients. And, personally, what worked for me was referrals, but I was doing this for years. So this is a big topic outside the scope of today. Noel, Ron, can you share your complete Figma design with us students for inspiration, please? Yeah, let me think about how to do this. I think I've shared kind of like the template of this, but not the one that is done. Let me think about this. Zara, you can note this in for us to think about how to do this. I'm not sure I'll be able to do this today, though. Also, I don't want you to look at this for inspiration too much. I want you to come up with your own ideas. So, yeah. All right. 2 last questions, and then we're heading off for today right on time. Niklas, hi Ron, I got 4 companies copying my website and copywriting. What to do? Gee, I don't know. I mean, the first thing that you should probably do is write to them. The second thing, after giving them a while to respond, is call them out publicly and tag them and kind of like shame them, I guess, for being wrong and stealing your work. I don't know. I mean, going into legal stuff of like suing them, it really depends on who they are, who you are, what geography or location you're based in, they're based in. It gets very complicated. But the overall thing is, don't worry. Like, I mean, this stuff happens all the time. People steal our work all the time. If you're going to take it too seriously and try to fight it, you're just going to wear yourself out. So it's going to be very, very tiring. So just don't do these things, but then move on with your life, because it's never gonna get over. All right, last question for today, Miriam. Is your video about Webflow limitations still valid? It's from April 2021. Dang, I don't remember fully the list of things that we have put there, but yeah, I don't think there have been, I don't think, wait, are you talking in the Webflow Masterclass? Because we just recorded new one last month, or like when we launched it a month or two ago. So when you should and shouldn't use Webflow. I don't clearly remember what changed from April last year. What has changed since then? I don't remember off the top of my head, but I'm very tired after this stream right now. So I will review it, and if something significantly changed, we will put up a new video valid for 2020 or something like this. So hope this helps. With that, we're going to wrap up for today and wrap up the third day of this crazy 3-day session. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned a lot. I hope you're going to submit your designs by Sunday, end of day. I'm super excited to review them, and looking forward to, if you're one of the people who are now choosing to join one of our full-on courses using the secret code below, I'm looking forward to seeing you in our class and in our weekly office hours. Super fun to be with you, and see you next time. Peace out.